Shabbat Shalom. So great to see faces populate the screen. Hi, Roberta. Shabbat Shalom. You were so illuminated last night. I saw you on screen at services. It was amazing. Good morning, Jay. Shabbat Shalom. Hi, Iva. Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, Vatka. But I don't know if I know how to pronounce your name. No. Hi, Estelle. Hi, Beth. Shabbat Shalom. Good morning. All right, we're going to give it no more than 2 minutes and dive right in because we have a lot to do and time is short. We need as much time for Torah, no beatul Torah here, no wasting time instead of studying Torah. It's a whole category in the tradition, beatul Torah. Right? You could have been studying Torah. So, welcome. People are coming on. Shabbat Shalom. And this is Shabbat Nachamu, Shabbat of consolation. I'm giving you the source sheet. And Michaeli will, and thank you, Michaeli, for holding the Zoom room. We'll drop it in every few minutes as people are coming in. Good morning, David. Good morning, Nechemia. Okay, I think we're going to actually begin, even though it's only 9:01. So today, what I'd like to do with you is look at the passage about Moshe appealing to God in a kind of heartbreaking way. Like he so much wants to go into the promised land and appealing to God, asking him, begging him, like, can I just go in and see that, that land that's over the Jordan? And then we're going to look at a few, like some commentary, but specifically what I want to get to is the Kedushat Levi, the Hasidic interpretation, that sort of zeroes in on one word and analyzes Moses's prayer and different categories of prayer that I think will be illuminating for us. So that's where I want to go with you today. And we're going to do the prayer before Torah study. You can probably hear my street noises, right? I'm now on the first floor. Okay. Roberta, can you do the bracha? Would you like to do it? I know you're going to insert beautiful God language, I'm sure.
בעברית. Okay.
It's
God
also
language בעברית.
it's transliterated. It's transliterated also.
No, I can read the Hebrew. I'm just saying, like, okay, English
I see.
God language.
So yeah, you can leave it the way it is fine.
Oh, all right. Well, because in this week's Parsha, we see Adonai written, right? Unusual. I'm going to do a little translation, if that's okay. Blessed is the great connector, our God. Majesty of all the worlds, all the universes, all the times, all the spaces, who has brought us closer through these mitzvot, and through especially the mitzvot of soaking in the things of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen. Amen. Wonderful. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to actually, well, let's see. I just give this little opening phrase from Psalms, and you'll see why later when we get to the Kedushat Levi. This beautiful line from Psalms that opens up our Amidah. Adonai sfatai tiftach ufi yagid tilatecha. Open my lips that I may utter your prayer. I mean, your praise, sorry. And I also just like this little quote from Franz Kafka's diaries.
Wow.
Hold on. Okay, not because his life was too short does Moses not reach Canaan, but because it was a human life. So this understanding of Moshe not getting to the promised land is centered not so much on sin and punishment, but rather that, each human being when they die, there's some promise that doesn't get fulfilled. Right? There's some land that they're looking at that they don't get to enter. Right? There's some dream that doesn't, you know,
Wow.
that stands unrealized. Okay, Roberta, oh, you did. Okay. You are now muted. Good. All right, so I'm going to read today the Hebrew and English and do some translating, interpreting, and do some commentary, and then I'm going to open it up. So just this way we have a little meat under our belts before we start discussing. So this is the beginning of the Parsha, the Hanan. And it says, the Hanan el Adonai ba'et hahi lemor. So this is Moses who is appealing to God at that time saying, but the word for pleading or appealing is interesting because it's etchanan, which has within it the root for grace. So let's just drop into Rashi's understanding of that, which I think is really beautiful and helpful in terms of our understanding this passage. So all four, well, grace is chen, right, in Hebrew. So all forms of the verb chanan signify, or that three-letter combination, signify a free gift. Now, although the righteous might make a claim to reward, depending on their good deeds, I'm sorry, there's something wrong here. So even though righteous people could sort of say, like, I did this, I did this, I did this, so give me this, I deserve this, right? But they don't do that. Ein mevakshim me'et hamakom ela matnat chinam. One doesn't do that, or there is no requesting of God except for a free gift. So in other words, when we approach God, we don't say, I deserve it, give it to me, this is, this should be mine. We plead, we beg, because ultimately, and I think this is a religious category, we don't really deserve anything. We receive, but we receive with grace. Okay, so now back to our main text here. Verse 24. Adonai, Adonai, Ata hachilota leharot et adecha et godlecha ve'et yadcha hachazaka asher mi el bashamayim uva'aretz asher ya'aseh k'maaseh ukvurotecha. So, O Lord God, you who let your servants see the first works of your greatness. But it can also be translated as, God, you just started letting me see, right? Your might and your greatness and your mighty hand. Like I've just begun to see it and understand it, right? You whose powerful deeds no God in heaven or on earth can equal. So it's kind of heartbreaking to think of Moshe, you know, he's, quite advanced age at this point in time and feeling like he just started to see, right, God's greatness. Jay, do you want to make a point directly about something I've just read? Yes? Okay. Can you unmute Jay, please?
Um, just one quick comment and a question. The quick comment is, I don't know if Aviva Zornberg knew the Kafka quote, but some of us here are studying in very, very deeply her new book on Moses called A Human Life. So I thought that was kind of neat. But my question is, when I read the Rashi, I'm thinking, oh yes, our relationship with God is not about exchange. It's
Exactly.
it's not transaction. But then I'm thinking, what about all those times? If you follow my mitzvot, I will give rain. If you do this, that's very transactional. So we have both here. We have both. Is all I wanted to say. Yeah.
Well, let me qualify that a little bit. Those descriptions describe a collective nation, not an individual. So the Shema describes the collective, the whole nation, not an individual. I feel like that's a little bit different, but this is like a deep theological question. So I would also say that those passages describe some form of act and consequence, as opposed to necessarily deserve a sort of natural consequence of one's actions. I don't know if that's satisfying. Jay, you're muted. If you want to say one more thing.
But they are conditional. They are transactional. And that's a very different flavor. And maybe the distinction between communal and individual, I'm not sure. That's not so compelling to me, but I just think we have both. And I think we need to recognize that
I'll
both
go
are
with
there.
that. I'll go with that. Okay. Verse 25. So this is an interesting, we'll see the verb that means to cross over in Hebrew, la'avor, the three-letter root, ayin bet resh, which is also at the heart of being a Hebrew, ivri, right? One who crosses over. Abraham was the first ivri, the first one who crossed over. So Moses says, Ebrana, right? Please let me cross over. And let me see the good land that is on the other side of the Jordan. And again, that root, be'ever, on the other side of the Jordan, Hahar Hatov, Hazeh v'ha-Lebanon, that good hill country and the Lebanon. Okay. All right. So then we have this root again right here, but in a whole different way. We have the reflexive form of the verb, right? Vayitaber Adonai bi lama'anchem. God got angry at me on your account. It was, in other words, it was your fault. V'lo shama Eli, and did not listen to me. Vayomer Adonai, and God said, Vayomer Adonai Eli, God said to me, Ravlach, enough. Enough for you. It's enough. It's like setting a limit. And it's interesting because Korach said that, the rebel in Numbers said that to Moses, and Moses said it back to Korach. Al tosef daber Eli. Don't talk to me about this anymore. Eli od davar hazeh, on this matter. I'm done, Moses. So God sets a really strong limit here. And then God says, Aleh rosh hapiska. Go up to the summit of Pisgah, v'sa einecha, and raise your eyes up. Yama v'tzafona v'temana umizracha. To the west, and gaze about to the west, the north, the south, and the east. And look with your eyes, because you will not cross over this Jordan. So this is a really interesting verse, because in one fell swoop, God is giving Moses exactly what he wanted, which was to see the promised land, and not giving Moses exactly what he wanted, which was to go over and pass over, right, into that good land. So he's giving him part of what he wanted. V'tzav et Yehoshua v'chazkehu, and command Joshua and strengthen him, sehu, and give him courage, encourage him, ki hu ya'avor lifnei ha'am hazeh, because he will, and again that root about passing over, or passing, because ki hu ya'avor lifnei ha'am hazeh, because he will pass over before this nation, v'hu yanchil otam, and he will let's see how he shall allot to them the land. So the nachala, the inheritance, the heritage. Hu yanchil otam et haaretz asher tireh, and he will allow them to inherit this land that you will see. You will see. So, you could feel the pain of Moses not getting exactly what he wants, but again, he gets part of it. Okay, so we looked at this Rashi, and I want to look briefly at this Midrash, and then we're going to open things up for some discussion, and then drop into some Chassidut. Okay, so I love this. This is from the Yalkut Shimoni, which is kind of a collection of different Midrashim, different rabbinic interpretations, and this really amplifies that moment when Moses was, begging God and issuing this prayer. When Moses saw that the decree had been sealed against him, he went and drew a circle and sat inside it. And it's interesting because there's this rabbinic character called Choni HaMa'agal, Choni the circle maker, who always drew circles and would pray inside the circle, and very powerful prayer, specifically in the case of needing rain. And said, I am not moving from here until you nullify the decree. So this is very different than the biblical text, because this is demand, right? This is not like, asking for a free gift. He then wrapped himself in sackcloth and covered himself with ashes and stood in prayer and supplication before God until the heaven and the earth and the very laws of creation began to tremble and said, perhaps the time, so the heaven and the earth are saying this in creation, said, perhaps the time has come for God to destroy the world. So they were like, what's going on? So Moses' prayer was so powerful, it destabilized the entire universe. So what did God do at that moment? He announced at every gate of every heaven and at every gate of every court that Moses' prayer should not be admitted. Right? So it was so powerful that God could not let Moses' prayer in to the heavenly realms. For the voice of Moses' prayer was like a sword that slices and rips, and which nothing can stop. Said Moses to God, if you will not allow me to enter the land, allow me to enter as a beast of the field, which grazes on the grass and drinks water and sees the world that way. Let my soul be as one of those. Said God, enough. Said Moses to God, if you will not allow me to enter the land, allow me to enter as a bird that flies in the air to all four corners of the earth to collect its feed, and in the evening returns to its nest. Let my soul be as one of those. Said God, enough. And that's the end of the Midrash. It doesn't have a happy ending. But God is a strict boundary setter here. Okay, I'm going to stop screen sharing if I can figure out where. Aha. Okay, here we go. All right. Hi, everybody. Comments on any of that so far? And if not, I'm happy to go on. No pressure, but I'll certainly give you a couple of minutes to digest and think. One of the things I was talking to my chavruta about this morning, Rabbi Sharon Cohen-Anisbelt, who's here with us, is that the word for anger, God getting angry, uses the same root. I think I mentioned this, but it's so puzzling. Uses the same root to cross over, right? That ayin bet resh, but it's in the reflexive form of the verb. So why would crossing over in the reflexive form be used to indicate anger? So that's really interesting. Okay, so I see a bunch of hands. Okay, Beth, James, Lori. Beth Brown.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Beth.
I'm struck by two things in this midrash. First, is Moshe having such a huge fit that he's shaking the very foundations of the universe? When we first encounter him, as an adult, he's such an emotional person that he immediately kills somebody in a fit of rage, apparently, and now he's having another fit. And apparently his personal power has grown from that early adulthood and being murderous to now he's so fitful that he can shake the foundations of the whole universe. I think that's fascinating.
I think that's such a great point.
Yeah, and I love the story that well, if I can't come as a human being, let me come as a grazing animal. And if I can't do that, let me come as a bird so I can fly over. This bargaining and trying to inhabit different forms himself, altering the universe that way. I think that's an absolutely fascinating and lovely midrash. I just love this. Who's the author of this one?
It's from a collection of midrashim called the Yalkut Shimoni. So I wanted to say a couple of things in response, and then I'm going to move on. So, yeah, and it also shows like Moses' desperation. Like, I'll go in any form. Like you can imagine the next piece of the midrash going to, could I be a blade of grass? Could I be a flower? Could I be a tree? Could I be a speck of sand? Like, can I be a grain of sand? Can I be something? But what I wanted to say about your earlier comment is that it's interesting because Moses in the beginning had the power, the bodily power of a murderer, but he didn't have the power of language. And here the power is sort of united, right? The power comes through the language. So thank you for that. Okay, so now, I think I said James is next, but God knows.
Good morning, James here from Ananda Yoga Ashram in Monroe, New York.
So you're going to give us some really contemplative, like Torah here, right?
We don't have time for that, but it's been mind expanding. But I want to hark back, Rabbi Diane, to what you had said earlier about the distinction between personal and collective prayer and consequences. That my noticing is that when Moshe prays for himself, God does not necessarily give him a good answer. For example, when he said, I'm not the right person to do this, God kind of ignored him. And here he's praying, it's as though like he's this burnt out Jewish professional, nonprofit professional, who's like, he's been looking forward to buying this condo in Naharia on the ocean. That's all he wants for himself because he's given up his whole life for the Jewish people. And he thinks it's a very reasonable request. But seriously, when he's praying for this, it doesn't seem to have the same impact, or God is able to stop the earth from shaking as opposed to when he prayed for Israel as a whole. And it's very poignant because he deserves it. He deserves it more than any other leader.
He deserves it, right? Sorry, I'm getting excited about this. Yes, he deserves it. He's so deserved. Who else would deserve to go to the promised land except for Moshe?
Right.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
And he didn't, whatever he did was not really a reason for him not going in. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm with you in feeling like the frustration and the pain of this passage. Okay, so now we're going to Jan. Lori,
yeah.
Sorry, Jan, Lori, Daniel, Jay, and quick comments if people can keep it short so we can go to the next piece. Okay, go ahead.
This is Jan. This is Yaakov though. It's so the comment is it's so beautiful because it's so powerful. You take us from the text, Diane, to the very and very quickly. I mean, I felt so overwhelmed emotionally. I was there. I was there with Moshe Rabbeinu. I was there with the discussion. It's such a powerful experiential moment that you've created. It's kind of, we're in there. We're right there. It impacts emotion. It connects us so deeply. It more than the eyes, more than seeing, more than touching or feeling. It brings our very soul to that place where we are now, where Moshe Rabbeinu is with God, and talking to each other and doing this powerful moment of desire, of pleading and the emotions that accompany that when enough is not enough. And we all experience enough is not enough, and what that means here, and what he feels, and that we're really talking to God. We are there in the conversation with God, and God back to us. It's such a powerful dimension of humanity, that spiritual dimension that you just brought me to. So thank you so much. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Right, and that dimension of yearning and the unrealized goals, right? It's like, yeah, it can be such a painful place. Okay. I'm just trying to remember my lineup. Okay, so no, I see you, Lori. Totally see you. Okay, no one else raised their hands for now. Okay, this is our lineup. That's it. So, Daniel, Lori, Jill, Jay. Daniel, Lori, Jill, Jay. Get.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, Daniel.
So a playful reading of Rav Lach is the opposite of what the divine is saying to Moses. Rav Lach also means you have so much.
You have so much. Oh, I love that, Daniel. Oh my God.
Yeah, this isn't I think Shefa Gold taught me this reading, and it gives a whole new twist to what this teaching moment is for Moses, that he then is going to deliver to the Jewish people, to the Israelites. Rav Lach, you have so much. The instruction is to go and see the land. In all four, he's going to see the land. But actually, it's a psycho-spiritual kind of message that he's receiving, that the land where you have so much is within you. The land is Yud-He Vav-He. It's within you, Moses. That's the directive. And when he gets down from the mountain after he has seen the oneness all around him and within himself, then he can deliver the Shema to the people.
Beautiful, Daniel, beautiful. And I so relate to feeling that sense of yearning and not seeing what I actually have. Like feeling in a deprived state, gimme, 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 and just not feeling the fullness of what's there.
Both are there
Yeah.
for Moses.
Yeah.
Can he hold both? This is like a David Ingber moment. Can you hold those irreconcilable differences? Can you have the spiritual maturity Moses to hold both?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, Lori.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm stitching what I heard, which is, the reconcilable differences, the circle around us, the primitive. We are so terrified of losing control and going into rage. We are so terrified of grief. And I know, having lost my brother, that I got on the earth and screamed out loud to God, please don't let him go. And now that my brother's gone, I scream out loud to God, God, let me know you. Because there is this place where the anger is energy and it goes through our body and we don't know the wholeness to crack our hearts open in grief and to go into rage and stay in our bodies. There is revelation when all emotions are energy in motion and we're in our bodies. Prayer changes. And so Moses hits the rock because the dark side of love, according to Natalie Goldberg in her book, The Dark Side of Love, is anger, envy, jealousy. And it's connected to love. And we're so terrified of that. And I'm just so grateful for you and for this time to just be in a truthful place with my community, because we're doing it in community. You do it alone, it's lonely.
Yeah. Thank you, Lori. That was very powerful. Thank you. Okay, Jill and then Jay, and then hold off raising your hands. We're going to do a couple more pieces of text, and then we'll, God willing, take some more comments.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to say that it occurred to me that, Moses, especially in this midrash, Moses kind of, bargaining with God and just saying, can I just be an animal? And I love the way that you said, can I just be a blade of grass? Can I just be a speck there? That's all I want. I just want to be in Israel.
Can I just be buried in the promised land? There's another midrash. Can I just be buried there like Yosef?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, would it? Yeah. And so that kind of yearning for, for this promised land for Israel, God knew that we would have that yearning, that we would be in the diaspora, and perhaps Moses is a model for that yearning and to keep that yearning alive.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jill. Yearning for the promise, yearning for the promised land. And you can even be in Israel and be yearning for the promised land, right? Okay, Jay.
I was taking a crack at your earlier issue of Ayin Beit Resh and the self-reflexive aspect of anger and crossing. We started a bit of a discussion about this in the chat, which is this notion of internally crossing over to another side. And my thought is about control and loss of control. And in keeping with Beth's point about the killing of the Egyptian, the hitting the rock, the midrash about Moshe getting so angry that the heavens are shaking, and notwithstanding Lori's comment to say it's not good or bad, it's just recognizing that there are two sides and internally, and crossing over from one to the other has different consequences, has a different way of relating to the world, etc.
Interesting. And I will say that my chavruta, Rabbi Sharon, taught me this morning that she reminded me that sometimes when we say anger, we use the word cross. You cross with me. I'm cross with you. So that's
the translation. That's what the translation does in the text.
I slipped it in there.
Yeah.
Based on that comment. All right, Sharon, did you want to say anything about this? Let's see. I'm going to ask you to here. Let's see if you can. Okay, there you go. Can you? Okay, there you go.
There we go. Yeah, thanks. Well, I was just thinking yes, the comments are so wonderful. I was just thinking maybe there's a way in which this root Ayin Bet Resh crossing over has something to do with the capacity within us not to accept what is, not to be satisfied with what is. And it's just striking me that at the beginning of Moshe's journey, that's an incredibly important midah, like to not be satisfied with the way things are in Mitzrayim, and to realize there needs to be, a journey out of there, a crossing over. And then at this point in his life, accepting what is the important midah that he, and so I'm just thinking about the ways in which not accepting what is and accepting what is are both so important in our lives, and knowing when it's time for each is so hard.
Like when I was a teenager, I wanted to break old boundaries. Is that appropriate? I still want to break old boundaries, I think. No, that's really interesting. When is it appropriate to cross boundaries, and when is it not? When is it
And
essential?
it's essential, right? And when is it? Yeah,
for freedom, for just a sense of like coherence, even, right? So yeah. All right, thank you. All right, so now I am going to. Oh, this looks like interesting things are happening in the chat, but I'm going to go share my screen again, and we're going to look at some more text. Let's see if this will work. Yes, I think it did. Okay. So now, so I just so love this text, and let's see. Well, can someone put in the chat, because I don't remember when the Kedushat Levi lived. I meant to look that up and I forget, and I don't remember these dates. So put that in the chat, just details about the Kedushat Levi, so everyone has context. Thank you so much. Okay. So the Kedushat Levi here is centering his interpretation on, let's go up a minute, on this word right here, Ve'etchanan el Adonai ba'et hahi lemor. So I pleaded with the Lord at that time, saying. So the Kedushat Levi sort of takes, it's like a rabbinic move, makes a rabbinic move and saying, lemor, we don't need the word lemor. The sentence would be perfectly happy without the word lemor. I pleaded with the Lord at that time, and then go into, oh Lord God, da, da, da. You may not feel like it works perfectly, but the Kedushat Levi is saying this word saying is miyutar, is extra. So let's go back down here. Okay, the word lemor, after we've been told that Moses pleaded with Hashem, pleaded with God, is superfluous. In light of this, it appears that the correct interpretation of the verse, and I pleaded with God at that time, is that initially Moses prayed to God that he would be able to pray subsequently. So in other words, lemor is the explanation of what he needed. What he needed was to say. That's what he needed. That is, before this, he was not able to say because he was ashamed before God, may his name be blessed, and needed to pray that he would be able to pray. So I so love this. This sense that I don't have the words to pray. Lori was just talking about, she found all this language, right, to confront God and to express her rage and her pain. But we don't always, sometimes we're just so stuck that we're wordless. And Moses, and it says here, because of shame, did not have the words. And so he prayed for the words and then received the ability to pray. So let's just go on a little bit with the Kedushat Levi. Another possible way of explaining the opening line of our Parsha is based on a statement in Talmud Brachot 9b. So here they're talking about the fact that you can't have an interruption between the Shema and the Amidah, between the Shema and the standing silent prayer that we will see soon in morning services. The Gemara concludes that the verse of God open my lips and my mouth will tell of your praises. So what the question here, the issue here is Adonai sfatai tiftach ufi yagit tilatecha, which is that little verse that you say right before you go into the Amidah, is an interruption. But the rabbi did not consider it to be an interruption between the Shema and the Amidah. Why? The rabbis establish it. It is considered like a long prayer. It says, sorry, I can't find exactly where I am here in the Hebrew. Well, it's like a tefillah arichta. It's like an extended prayer. And it turns out, the Kedushat Levi says, there are two elements of prayer, or there are two categories of prayer. Or maybe elements of prayer is actually better. The prayer itself, and the prayer that a person is able to pray. So before we go into services this morning, we might say a little prayer that we're able to pray. And Moshe Rabbeinu, peace be upon him, needed to pray that he would be able to request his prayer from blessed be God to enter the land of God. I'm sorry, into the land of Israel. And he asked God for eloquence. He asked God for eloquence. He asked God for the gift of eloquence. So that's the Kedushat Levi. And I am going to stop screen sharing. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Okay, let me just take a quick look at the chat, and if you want to say something, please open your, raise your hands. Okay, so thank you. Kedushat Levi, the Berditchever, which is our Romemu member, Evelyn Goodman, may her memory be blessed, her ancestor, which she was very proud of, and a Hasidic master. And you can read the rest in the chat, 18th century. Thank you so much, Michaeli. Oh, that was nice, Michaeli. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now I see Nehemiah and Amy. And Barbara. Nehemiah, Amy, Barbara.
I don't mind to wait and let ladies go first.
Go for it, Nehemiah. You have the stage. Just go.
Okay, I'll take the stage. Oh. It's an amazing afuch al afuch, opposite on opposite, between the dualistic pshat, the meaning of the words, and drash. And thank the Lord, I have the remez, the hint, from the Zohar today, because Professor Danny Matt did it for me. He translated the Zohar and I read this part. When Moses went to Ar Nevo, he saw, according to the Zohar, he saw from there all of Israel from one side to the other, and all the times, everything that will happen in the future, everything. He was totally satisfied, period.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm thrilled. Wow.
Because he was in a place that for him, actually, the Holy Land was everywhere. It was in his soul. But he needed to see that the people of Israel will go through this and that and whatever, and will reach each one according. Because let's face it, the text is written dualistically, all text mostly, because that's where we are at. But the remez of the people who reach enlightenment from the Zohar and whatever, they tell us that Moses was realized. He might have played as if he was arguing with God for the sake of people, but he didn't argue with God. He was in peace with God, the same way that Martin Luther King was in peace. He knew, I didn't see it, but I know what's going to happen. Everything is going to go according to God's will, and I'm in peace with it.
Beautiful, Nehemiah.
It make no sense for me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm glad that another interpretation lives by the side of these other ones that we saw, because Moses was completely satisfied with the vision. Okay, so I think we said Amy. Amy's next.
Unmute. Okay, hi. Good morning. Shabbat Shalom. And Hag Sameach. Today is the 15th of Av.
It is.
A day of love.
Tu B'Av.
And the 15th of Av. And it's a day of love. I wanted to say, Rabbi Diane, I don't know if it's lighting in the room or what, but you look more lovely today than any other day I've ever seen you. So, and I've noticed that many of the students speaking have a very interesting light coming down on them. And this is perhaps the light of love that's coming down to all of us today.
Beautiful.
To connect this to the portion, the question is, can you continue to love even if you don't get what you want or what you feel you need or desire? The concubine died at the threshold like Moses. her death ultimately converted this to a day of love between men and women. Moses' death at the threshold helped to shape the love of Israel that Israel has for Moses and for the love of our community.
Wow, Amy, wow. So there's something about dying or offering up your life by the threshold that you're raising up in such a gorgeous and powerful way. Thank you. I feel like I need to digest that for a while.
And I mean, you do look lovely today.
Oh, thank you so much, Embarrassed. Thank you. All right. Okay. I think Barbara and then David.
Hi, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Just a small other way of looking at maybe, and I love what everyone has said. It's all so clear and so connected and deep to this whole thing. Maybe Moses doesn't get to go into the promised land because he's also part of that older generation, that first generation that has to die out. And even though, you know, obviously he deserves, he still is from the bondage situation, even though he himself really wasn't a slave. So he, you know, when we go into something new, we hopefully have, we're like a chrysalis and we are rebirthed, and maybe God just felt that it wouldn't be right for him to then go in as the new generation. And, you know, to make that slightly contemporary, I always notice how interesting it is. Like, I don't know, when the baby boomers reached 50, when I reached 50, there was all this press about how we were all going to be retiring soon and moving on. And I'm thinking, God, I just got started. You know, like, what's the rush? And,
so just like Moses, I just got started, right?
I'm just really understanding things, and then they push you right off, you know, next. So that's just something to think about.
You also make me think, Barbara, that I feel it's not only coming out of the pandemic, but it has a lot to do with climate change at this moment. Well, we're not really coming out of the pandemic. Let me erase that. I feel like we're on a threshold, although I have no idea what land we're moving into. Like, I have no clue. And I'm increasingly scared, which I feel is actually appropriate.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, like, what are we on the threshold of right now?
It's very hard to fathom.
And to pick up what Amy was saying, what do we have to let die, which feels pretty big. Okay, David.
There we go.
Shabbat Shalom, David.
Well, I agree. You look particularly lovely today. So, you know, I've always had a tough relationship with prayer. Prayer. Rabbi Ingber spoke about prayer. The three parts of prayer is praise, petition, and gratitude. I definitely have gratitude, and that's probably why when I do pray, it's to express my gratitude. But this episode, I feel a lot of pain for Moses, because Moses is the one person who's been in dialogue with God, and it's abruptly cut off. He's lost that connection at this point. I mean, this is kind of the moment where you no more conversation. We're done, you know, and that's got to be extremely painful. And it begs the question for me, like, does God really want to be in conversation with man? I mean, I don't. He definitely. We're commanded to praise. You shall love
man. Is that what you said?
With man, yeah. I've never had that. I know some people have. They've been in conversation with God, and I believe it. I respect it. I've never personally had that.
You might need to pray for prayer, David.
Maybe.
Right? This text is for you if you want to go there.
I'll try. I mean, I have tried and I will try, but I don't know that, he wants to be Mitchard with all our stuff. And I don't know that he hears us and, all that kind of stuff. We don't need to go there, but
We have a conversation about this, David.
yeah. Okay. Anyway, we're commanded to love God with all your heart, with all your mind, all those things. But I don't know about petitioning God about things. I wish I could feel that.
What you're bringing to mind is God's grief at this moment. Like, is it that God doesn't want this conversation to go on? Or does God want the conversation to go on, but it just can't be for all the reasons that people said? It just can't be anymore. It's time for the conversation to end. But it is, again, you've pointed out another reason why this moment is so painful. Okay, Joe St. George, and then we're gonna read one poem, and I think we're gonna close this session out. Yeah.
Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. I see through the lenses of the other gentleman earlier who said that Moses was content with the decision because he bore long with the people and could not fathom why they murmured so much. And then he was pushed to the point, I don't know about you, but I've been pushed by family members to where I've just gotten angry and lost it. And I've like, Lord, this is horrible that I'm responding to my family this way. And you get tired of it. And for him to go into the promised land and know, because he knew that they would still continue to have not the attitude that he wanted them to, that he was warned that they would rebel. He's like, okay, I'll just go to sleep because I can't watch this. And that's the hardest thing for me with family members is to watch family members continue to do things contrary to what I know is best for them. And then they murmur. And so I think he was content, like, okay, I can't watch this anymore. I love my people because he prayed for them. When God was like, I'm going to just deal with them, he's like, no, blot me out. So he loved them so much, but he had to been tired. I know I get tired. And so I don't know, that's kind of a lens that I see, that he was content in knowing that they were going, but couldn't bear, possibly going with them and hearing them continue in the same vein that they spent 40 years in the wilderness murmuring.
Joe, it's interesting because here Moses is begging to go into the promised land, but you're saying, no, he's so tired and he can't deal with this anymore. It's like enough. It's enough for him. Right. And it's interesting because I think what you're bringing up for me is that, in a sense, that even though he would go into the promised land, he wouldn't go into the promised land because the people would keep misbehaving. So then the promise is never fulfilled on that level, even if you go physically into the promised land. Okay, so I'm going to take us to a poem that gives us another lens on Moshe at this moment. Let's see, let me screen share. Okay, so this is a poem by Abigail True, Rabbi Abigail True. There was a time you would never have said enough, a time when your passion burned for me, never consumed. Even when I was afraid, when I pleaded for release, you wanted me. Now I am old. I did my best. Do not cast me off in my old age. As long as I am young, strong, powerful, in office, running things, people will listen to me. But what next? When I am old, retired, broke, when I've stepped off the board and can't hear anymore, when my hands tremble, and maybe I make a mess when I eat, will anyone listen to me? Passion, perhaps, is for young lovers. And yet I love you so in my old age, too. Promises that bloomed with youth lay shattered with the disappointment of time gone by and time running out. Now that it's his turn, the young one, still strong, still handsome, with a whole world ahead of him, you burn for him. You cast me aside. Enough. It's not that I needed to actually enter the land. It's that I needed to know you still want me. Okay, this poem just kills me. It just kills me. It's just so heartbreaking. Like, do not, and it it echoes with that line from High Holiday Prayer. Don't cast me off, as you know, when I'm old. Don't cast me off, God. Don't cast me off. You know, are you like those? Are you like society that that only wants youth? You know, that only wants youth. So is Moses still desirable at this moment? Still wanted by God? If we're not wanted by anyone else, we could at least be wanted by God. Okay, thank you, everybody. Wish I could study with you for a longer and a long time, and but I'll see you at services in a little while. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. A day of shlemut, of wholeness,